Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to Dr. Matthew Wappett, who is the Executive Director of Utah State University's Center for Persons with Disabilities, with an affiliate appointment as a Research Associate Professor in the USU College of Education and Human Services. His background is in special education and disability studies, and most of his research has been focused on creating and evaluating inclusive environments to accommodate the needs of diverse populations. Dr. Wappett's teaching and research has recently turned to the effects of chronic stress on learning and social interaction. A specific focus on the effects of laughter for stress management and positive social engagement. Dr. Wappett teaches laughter yoga and enjoys helping others learn to laugh. So with that, thank you, Dr. Wappett.
Everything works here.
It doesn't get laugh about it, right?
This morning's a great example. Kind of be flexible. We all have to learn to be flexible, right? You'll notice I changed the title of the presentation from what was advertised, Why Stress Makes You a Terrible Person and Why You Should Laugh About It. So what I'm going to do is walk you through some science up front. And the reason that I have to walk you through a bit of science up front is that my wife is terribly, terribly embarrassed about what comes later on. And she says you have to at least make people think that you have some credibility. You will notice I will very quickly lose all credibility. But we are going to talk about the effects of chronic stress, why it makes you a terrible person, both physically and mentally, and then sort of what you can do about that. I learned, I didn't start doing this work until 12, when I was dealing with some really stressful situations in my life, and I actually did what most logical people do. They go back to school. I went and did some postdoctoral work at Harvard Medical School on mind-body medicine at the Benson Henry Mind-Body Medical Institute there, and that's where they have a laughter lab there, and that's where I learned how to laugh. So somehow that also makes it seem better that you learned how to laugh at Harvard. Oh, it must be legit then. So anyway, okay, so what we're going to do, I want to begin with the assumption that we all live in a state of pervasive chronic stress. I know this because at the Center for Persons with Disabilities, I have the wonderful opportunity of approving leave and everything else. And I noticed that we carry over massive leave balances, right? And I'm sure that's the same in everywhere that you are. I'm not going to, in some cases, I'll have people raise their hands, right? How many of you have 200 plus hours a week? How many have 100 hours? That's just depressing because it means that you're not doing great. But we, in the United States, we take fewer vacation days than any other developed country in the world. And that has a significant impact on our mental and physical health. Other countries, European countries, other developed nations have like mandatory vacation, right? France, you have essentially a month where you're required, you just take a break from work. That would be unheard of here in the United States because our heroes are stressed out. The people that we look up to, the people who are important are the people who have schedules, who are rushing from meeting to meeting with a scowl on their face and are super important, right? You know them, you see them on campus all the time. I may or may not occasionally be one of them. But these are the people who are like, wow, they are busy and they must be important. Really, they're just stressed out and they're slowly dying. The other thing though too, in our culture, stressed out people are our heroes. So I like to go back when I was in grad school, right after I got married, my wife and I used to eat dinner and watch ER way back in the 90s, right? And ER was a show essentially about people dealing with stressful situations all the time and then going home and having sex to deal with it, and then coming back into stressful situations all the time again. That actually hasn't changed. You'll notice that ER continues to be on TV. Law and Order, we have Grey's Anatomy, we have Chicago PD. We have all these shows with stressful people dealing with overwhelming situations every single day and then having sex to deal with it, coming back and dealing with stressful situations. Again, that's not necessarily a healthy way to, maybe entertaining, but not really practical or realistic. So I'm going to hopefully give you some tools to think about how you can deal with this, and maybe get you to reflect a little bit about how you perceive stress in your life. Do you feel that being stressed is important? Most of us are in this situation. We're so stressed out about being stressed out that we can't remember why we're stressed out, and that's stressing you out. In fact, probably over the last week, every single person in here has said at some point, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, right? Unless you're a really, really atypical person. But we talk about stress all the time. It's something that we are, but yeah, that just pervades everyday conversation, especially in work environments. Unfortunately, very few of us actually understand what stress is. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go around the room. I kind of know, when I ask people to define stress, the frequent answer is behavioral attributes. It's anxiety, it's feeling overwhelmed, it's, some people will get biological, it's the activation of the HPA axis, right? But there's actually a really simple definition of stress, and we didn't really start doing stress research on humans until the 1960s. And in the 1960s, a biologist named Hans Selye was doing research on stress, and he sort of coined the term that we've all become familiar with, response. So stress in your body is the fight or flight response. I sanitized it, I took off the tea. It's okay, right? So stress is what this baboon is feeling. So this baboon is out on the savannah grazing. Baboons are often human, they eat grass or whatever they come across, and he's kind of doing his baboon. Lion pops out, and the baboon has to make some decisions, right? The baboon has to decide, do I stand my ground and fight, or do I run away? And to help the baboon deal with this particular decision, the body does all sorts of interesting things. So number one, your heart starts beating more rapidly. Same thing in the baboon. Blood pressure goes up. You start breathing more shallowly, but it actually gets more oxygen into your muscles, and your body shifts the way that your circulation works. It gets circulation out to your large skeletal muscles so that you are prepared for a huge expenditure of energy. Because if you're going to fight or run, you're going to have to use a lot of energy to do that. So your body says, okay, we're going to release some hormones here. Adrenaline and cortisol are the two primary hormones, and it makes your body prepped for a massive expenditure of energy. So what that does is it helps us learn it prepares us to react appropriately to something like a killer hippo here, right? It gets that oxygen out there. The other interesting thing that the body does, and when it shifts that circulation, also releases chemicals through those hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, that make your blood more sticky. And your blood, why would you want your blood to be more sticky if you're going to fight or flight? Because if you get cut, right, whether you're running or fighting, if you get cut, you want your blood to clot really quickly. You don't want to sit there bleed out all over the place. So your blood becomes more sticky so that when you get away, or in the process of getting away, you kind of preserve that important element of your body. Most of us deal with the same stress response as that baboon or the guy running away from the killer hippo. And the same thing happens in our body. So whether it's a lion coming out of the back there to chase you, or whether you're sitting at your desk and realize that you forgot a deadline, or you're late for something, or you get a call from school that says your child is doing this or that, we get the exact same stress response. Our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, we start breathing more shallowly, our muscles get tense, and we're ready for a great big huge expenditure of energy. Unfortunately, most of us don't actually run or fight, sit there, right? And your body's like doing all these things, saying, okay, ready to go, and you're like, right? And in the long run, that's not very healthy. But it's exactly the same response, except we're not actually using that energy the body is ready to expend. So to our body, a stressful job is really no different than fighting off a lion or a tiger bear 40 hours a week or more. So yeah, if you have a super stressful job, you're kind of like this guy right there. This guy survived, by the way. But your body cannot tell the difference. Your body can't tell when you have a lot of work and you have all these deadlines, or there's a tiger actually waiting to jump on you. Your body cannot tell the difference. It's doing exactly the same thing. It's releasing adrenaline, it's releasing cortisol, your blood pressure's up, your heart rate's up. You're kind of like, I'm ready to do something, and I'm sitting here and I wonder why I have chronic pain and headaches and everything else. Okay, so this is science. This is the pie chart of death. So, in the developed world, the leading cause of death is cardiovascular disease, and having a constantly elevated heart rate for a period of time and elevated blood pressure. We know that elevated heart rate and elevated blood pressure are huge warning signs for cardiovascular disease. You add on to that the fact that your blood is sticky, and couple that with a poor diet, because a lot of us manage our stress through eating, and you have some plaque built up in your arteries. That sticky blood actually sticks to that plaque, which again raises your the risk of heart attacks, stroke, a lot of cardiovascular events that eventually kill you. I could provide an argument that cancer and respiratory disease and a few of these other ones are also related to stress. Diabetes, because again, handle stress with eating, and that has long-term impacts on our body. But in the long run, if we look at healthcare in the United States, 65 to 75% of healthcare complaints and visits to the doctor or the emergency room are related to stress or are exacerbated by stress. We do not see these same numbers in the developing world or in countries that don't have, the less developed countries. Now they have their own stressors, but here in the United States, you don't see cardiovascular disease being the leading cause of developing countries or in tribal cultures or things like that. It's very unique to us, and it's directly correlated with the stress response in our bodies. So, okay. So this is a zebra winning. Oh, I didn't edit this one, so you'll have to excuse my. So because in the wild, the stress response is not supposed to be on for a long period of time. So a zebra like this that's out grazing on the savannah, when a lion pops out of the, behind the tree or whatever and starts chasing it, the zebra essentially has 5 minutes, right, to get away or to fight and to win. Usually that stress response, 5, 10 minutes maybe max, and then the stress response turns off. The zebra goes back and kind of eats or hangs out, I don't know. You don't see zebras sitting out there on the savannah worrying, right? They get away from the lion. They don't sit under the tree out there and say, got away that time. I don't know if I could do that again. I don't know where the kids are. Where are the kids? Did the kids get eaten by the lion? I don't know. I think I just lost my appetite, right? Zebras don't do that. They get away, they survive, they're like, okay, they go back to being a zebra. There's actually a book written about this. It's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It's a legit book written by a biologist. Go check it out. But in the wild, the stress, and in general, in all mammals, the stress response was intended to be on for a short period of time and then be turned off. Unfortunately, in humans, we have these remarkable brains that allow us to tell ourselves really cool stories about how bad things were in the past and how terrible things are going to be in the future. And you can stress yourself out and keep yourself stressed out for long, extended periods of time. You can stress yourself out right now. I had to drop my son off this morning at Logan High School, and I guess Fox News was there or something to do something, and he had packed a backpack full of costume things and other accoutrements to participate in this Fox News broadcast. And I could think about what exactly is he doing now and who is texting me at the moment, and I can stress myself out pretty readily. You can do exactly the same thing. You can sit here and say, well, I'm here spending an hour listening to this guy, blah, blah, and I have all this email and other work is piling up and I have a long weekend coming ahead. Your brain tells you these stories, really stressed out. And so we stay in this stress response for an extended period of time. And because of that, our body says we have to get more energy. And so our body starts shutting down non-essential processes. So some of those processes that the body shuts down are things like growth, reproduction, and digestion. So this totally makes sense from a biological perspective. Number one, you don't need to digest the breakfast that you just had if you're not going to survive the next 5 minutes, right? Your body, there's no purpose to it. You don't need to grow that extra inch or out that extra inch if you're not going to survive the next 5 minutes. And going back to sort of survival of the fittest, we probably don't even want you reproducing if you can't survive that. Survival of the fittest, evolution, right? And so your body says these are kind of non-essential things. So we'll shut down the energy that goes to these processes and we'll divert it to the stress response so that your heart rate can stay up and your hormone levels can stay up and your blood pressure can stay up, and it ensures that you have that energy to run or to fight. So this is demonstrated in lots of different ways. One of them is in the digestive system. And you've probably all done this. If you go out and you startle a bird on the beach or wherever, what's the first thing the bird does? It empties its bowels. Mammals do this too. If you're a hunter and you know if you startle a deer or something else, one of the first things they do is empty their bowels. And this ensures that your body bit lighter, right? So that you can get away. And our body does exactly the same thing, but people don't think about it. But we know because that digestive system is shut down and those stress hormones are saying, okay, lighten the load here, people. It leads to things like chronic diarrhea and irritable bowel syndrome, which are directly correlated with stress levels. And so now, when you go to the doctor for irritable bowel syndrome, chronic diarrhea, things like that, one of the first things they have you do is look at how are you managing your stress. Same thing with reproduction. The reproductive system gets shut down. My father and my brother are both obstetricians and do reproductive medicine. They used to be they were doing lots more invasive treatments. Now, one of the first things they do when people go in for reproductive therapy is they say, how are you handling your stress? Because we've learned if you can handle your stress, you can actually turn these systems back on. So again, stress has these broad impacts that we sometimes don't even think about. Okay. The other thing that your body does is it also shuts down and dampens the immune system. The immune system requires a tremendous amount of energy to actually stay in balance. And there's a whole balance with your immune system with cells that are kind of, your body has to kind of keep the immune system cells tamped down. Otherwise, your immune system can attack itself. So there's a lot of energy that goes into maintaining this immune system balance. But when you're stressed out, cortisol and adrenaline are specifically toxic to your immune system. And so you end up having a weakened immune system, and you have all experienced this in some way, shape, or form. You have worked up to a break, Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, something like that, really stressed out. You have these deadlines. You're like, okay, I'm going to get stuff done. I'm going to get everything done before the break, and then I'm going to have a great break. And so you have this surge of energy. You're like, man, I am so productive. I work so great under deadlines. I am awesome. And you go on break, and what's the first thing that happens when you go on break? You get sick, right? Because your immune system, you have that adrenaline and cortisol, your body's going, finally you relax, and your body says, okay, I'm done. And you're open to a whole host of diseases, bacteria or viral. You're sick over the whole break, and by the time you're better, you've got to go back to work and get back in that stressful environment. Right? So now you know why that happens. Okay. So we've talked about the neck down, and you're feeling really good about yourself. And you're feeling like, yeah, this doesn't happen to me. I'm totally above and beyond this. But let's talk about your brain, because what happens from the neck down is really horrifying. What happens from the neck up is even more horrifying. So I want to make a quick distinction. At some point growing up, you were all told that you were either left-brained or right-brained, and you took all sorts of tests, right, to determine I am right-brained and I'm super creative and awesome, or I'm left-brained and I'm super logical and like numbers, right? Actually, the distinction is completely artificial. They both work together. There's really, science doesn't seem to support the left brain, right brain sort of hypothesis. And we know this, if one side of the brain gets compromised, the other helps compensate for it. But the more important distinction is the upper and the lower brain. So the lower brain is right here. It's the sort of inside of your brain. It's also called the limbic system. This is the part of your brain that's responsible for survival. This is the part of your brain that is responsible for breathing, for eating, for kind of keeping all of your body systems running, for reproducing. Sort of these basic instincts of survival are in that limbic system. Now, the part of the brain that makes us human is the upper brain, and specifically in humans is this prefrontal cortex up here. So as you sort of move up the evolutionary ladder, the prefrontal cortex gets larger and larger and larger in more developed animals. And the prefrontal cortex is a remarkable piece of machinery right up here in the front of our brain. It's responsible for your executive function, which allows you to pay attention. It allows you to organize your day. It's the part of your brain that allows you to look at something, learn it, and encode it, and sort of connect it with your past knowledge. It's the part of your brain that's responsible for looking at another human, saying, this is another person. If I'm nice to them, they'll be nice back to me. It's the part of your brain that's responsible for paying attention, right? I need to pay attention to this, and it says, okay, we need to focus. So that prefrontal cortex is kind of important. It's also the part of your brain that tells yourself terrible stories like, right, I was a terrible person earlier this week, nobody likes me and everybody hates me, I guess I'm gonna go eat worms. Or next week, yeah, I'm gonna totally bomb on this assignment, I know I'm never gonna do it, right? That's the part of the brain. So it does these remarkable things, it's also kind of our own worst enemy. Okay, so when you are stressed out, the hormones that are released chemically rewire your brain so that you become focused on your individual survival, okay? So again, in a biological sort of state of nature, you don't have the capacity to take care of a whole bunch of people when you're in danger. And so your body actually helps you with this and says, okay, we're gonna sort of shut off this part of your brain that says, looks at other people and says, I need to be nice to them. And you become focused on your own survival. We know this from lots and lots of sort of traumatic event experiences where people behave in really terrible ways, where they don't help others, kind of run right over people. They become very, very selfish. It sort of creates, it focuses you, right? It focuses you on your individual survival. Herbert Benson at the Harvard Medical School says that when you get stressed out, you essentially give yourself a chemical prefrontal lobotomy. And he says when you allow yourself to be stressed out over prolonged periods of time, what you're essentially doing is taking that part of your brain that makes you human, and you're essentially saying, I don't need to be human anymore. And you have all experienced this. You have all had a really bad day at work, a really stressful day, and you have gone home and you were terrible to the people that you love. Right? You're mean. Sometimes you're mean. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I have one of my daughters right down here in front who's somehow taking pictures of me. Sorry, I didn't. I'm going to stress you out. And she will tell you that I occasionally come home grumpy and mean, even though I teach this stuff and I know how this works. And I have a great excuse, and you can use this excuse. When you are stressed out, that part of your brain that looks at another person and says, I should be nice to this person because then they'll love me and support me back. That part of your brain's offline. And so you just tell your loved ones that you're chemically incapable of feeling love for them. I've tried that with my wife, and it's not, don't do that. But that's actually what's happening in your body. You become chemically, that part of your brain that's responsible for compassion is sort of offline, and you are mean and terrible. And so what happens is you kind of are mean and terrible, you go sit down, you sort of remove yourself from the situation, you take a few deep breaths, and you're like, oh, great, I don't know why I did that, I'm a bad person, I've got to go back and apologize and do all this, right? And when you take those few deep breaths and you sort of relax, that's that part of your brain opening back up and saying, wow, I probably shouldn't have done that, right? And all of a sudden you're human again. Stress hormones do this remarkable shift in there. That again, It makes us a terrible person. That's why I titled it, Why Stress Makes You a Terrible Person. It's also why when you're stressed out, you have a hard time paying attention. Ever notice that? If you're under a lot of stress, you have a really hard time paying attention. That part of your brain that says you need to attend to this is sort of offline because you're focused on just surviving. It's why it's hard to remember things when you're stressed out. If you're cramming for a test or something and you're moving right up to that deadline, a lot of times students say, I worked and I studied for hours right up till I took the test, but then I couldn't remember anything when you're in there. Because that stress took that part of your brain that's responsible for encoding that knowledge sort of offline completely. It's why you've all experienced this too, again. So not only with being mean, so it used to be that we were worried about losing keys. Now we're more worried about losing our cell phones, right? So you probably all left your cell phone somewhere and you've gotten really stressed out about it because you're like a lot of people. I started seeing people carry like their credit cards and stuff in their cell phones and everything. It's like if you lose your cell phone, your life's over, right? So we misplace our cell phones and we get really, really stressed out and you're rushing around home and you're rushing around the office looking for the cell phone and you can't find it. And again, the stress levels are ramping up and up and up. But because that part of your brain that is responsible for episodic memory that allows you to sort of put your day together and think through the details of it is offline, you can't do it. And again, so you kind of rush around, you're looking for it, you sit down, you resign yourself that you're going to have to get, a whole new identity and you're going to have no money and everything else. And you take a few deep breaths and sort of give up. All of a sudden, that part of the brain opens up, you take a few deep breaths and you say, oh, yeah, that's where it is. Okay, again, it's those few deep breaths, it's that ability to step back and relax that opens it up and again makes us human. Okay, so if you're not already stressed out, and I'm not going to go through these in a whole lot of detail, but looking at the research over the past 30 years, we know that there's a ton of conditions that are either caused or exacerbated by stress. So clearly high blood pressure, cardiac issues, atherosclerosis because of the sticky blood, right, sticking to your artery walls, chronic pain because your body, your muscles are ready to do something big and you sit there so you build up that tension in your body. If you were actually, when you got stressed out, able to go outside and run or do something physical, that chronic pain and tension tends to go away. Attention deficit disorder, ADHD, stress is not the primary cause, but it certainly exacerbates it. And again, if that part of your brain that's responsible for paying attention is offline, it makes total sense. So insomnia, anxiety, hostility conduct disorder, depression, obesity is a fun one. Have you ever wondered why your body stores fat right here? Because I know, I think about weird things. Why does our body store fat right here? Your body's actually doing you a favor. This is something you can thank your body for. So when you're stressed out and you're ready for a big expenditure of energy, is ready to usually your body uses energy in its most ready sort of sugar form, glucose, right? That's what your body wants to use for energy. But when you're stressed out for a prolonged period of time, your body says, wow, this person's under an immense amount of stress. They need more energy. So we're going to actually shift the metabolism and start storing glucose in a much more dense sort of energy. And the most dense, energy-rich way to store that is fat, right? Fat is the most dense, energy-rich sort of substance that we know of in our body. And your body does you a tremendous favor. Not only does it shift your metabolism and start storing fat because you need that energy to deal with this fight or flight response, it says, we should probably store that in an area that's going to protect sort of these vital organs. So it stores it right here. I mean, how silly would it be if your body stored fat out in your hand, right? That's not going to help you get away, right? You kind of keep it here in the center of gravity. It pads you. It sort of helps. It helps you run and stay in balance and everything else. So next time you're worried about truncal obesity or that broken spare tire, you can thank your body and say, "Wow, thanks for helping me deal with my stressful life." But we also know that. We also know that now in a lot of weight loss programs, one of the first things that they're doing in weight loss programs is teaching people stress management. Because if you can manage your stress, and you can actually shift that metabolism back, and it becomes much, much easier to lose weight. So again, a lot of weight management programs now are just having you check, are you sleeping? Okay, because sleep becomes a really important way of managing stress. Are you getting 8 hours of sleep? And how are you managing that stress? Because if you can do that, your body's going to be a lot healthier in the long run. Okay, so eating disorders, PMS, infertility, autoimmune disorders, again, with that immune system out of whack, it opens up to all sorts of things. Diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, stress hormones are actually toxic over the long run to your brain and lead to dementia. People who have more stressful jobs are more prone to developing Alzheimer's and dementia later in life. High cholesterol, side effects of cancer therapy, these got cut off. This was kind of reformatted. So just treatment response in general, how you respond to treatment. If you were able to manage your stress, you actually respond better to antibiotics, to chemotherapy, whatever the treatment is. It's more effective because those stress hormones, again, are toxic to a lot of what happens in our body. Okay, so now you're stressed out. Now you're worried. And I'm sorry if you're a stress researcher. I know that I've gone through like millions of pages of research and I've totally not done it justice at all. So I'm well aware that this is like the Cliff Notes version of what's actually happening. So you can take comfort in the fact that what I've shared with you is actually much, much worse in real life. Okay, so we're going to talk about how you handle this. All right, so if our bodies have a stress response, and if our bodies are subject to the laws of nature, it must mean that our bodies have an equal and opposite response, right? It's one of Newton's laws of physics, and thankfully, the body has something called the relaxation response. The relaxation response was discovered, and I say discovered in air quotes because it's the person who gave it its name. Herbert Benson at the Harvard Medical School discovered the relaxation response back in the 1960s. He's a cardiologist at Harvard Medical School. He was doing high blood pressure research on monkeys, working with pharmaceutical companies. And in the early 1970s, it was that time in our country when a lot of people were coming back from India. The Beatles had come back from India. They had brought these ideas of transcendental meditation. There were a lot of tie-dye sitting on the streets contemplating their own navels. And then some of them actually came to Herbert Benson and they said, you know, you're dealing with this blood pressure stuff. Guess what? You can lower our blood pressure without drugs. And he said, really? He was fascinated. He had an open mind. He said, okay, let's do this. So he had to do the research through the IRB, the Institutional Review Board. Now, the Institutional Review Board said back in the 70s, it's a little different than it was today. They said, you can do work on monkeys, but you cannot do this work on humans. And so he sort of bent the rules a bit and snuck these people in after hours and essentially gave them a stress test. So you can put yourself on a treadmill, and if you've had heart problems, you know that the stress test, right, you get on a treadmill and you start running really, really fast as you can. Your body can turn on that stress response. If you start running like something's chasing you, the body turns on the stress response. So your body can actually activate it as well. So Herbert Benson stuck these guys and girls on treadmills and had them run, and then he'd have them sit down and say, okay, I want to see you lower your blood pressure, lower your heart rate, do everything. And so they did. They sat down, they got on there, they got the stress response, everything was elevated. In about 5 minutes, they could reduce their heart rate, they could reduce their blood pressure, reduce their respiration. And he started he was fascinated by this. He said, wow, if you can train your body to do this, why aren't we learning? So it sort of changed his whole career. And what he did is started studying the relaxation response. What is it that leads to the activation of the relaxation response? So there are essentially 2 basic steps that he discovered to the relaxation response. And I promise this looks weird, but it makes complete sense. So essentially, to activate the relaxation response, you have to repeat a word, sound, thought, phrase, or muscular activity, and then you have to return to that repetition when other thoughts intrude. And so what this does is it sort of turns off our brain, because our brain is kind of our own worst enemy, and it tells us to come back to the present moment and to sort of say, okay, I'm here, I'm now, there's no lions or bears around, I'm okay, I can relax. Unfortunately, our brain is typically not in the present moment. We're telling ourselves these terrible stories about the past and the future. But there's lots of things. You look at this, and if you're familiar with mindfulness meditation, you're like, exactly what this is. But there's lots of things that do this. It's not just mindfulness meditation. Exercise. It's a repetitious muscular activity. And you'd be surprised at the research that's been done here. Knitting, crocheting, sewing, fly tying, dancing, yoga. There's a ton of things. Just focusing on your breath, breathing. There's a whole host of things. And essentially it's just that repetition is necessary to sort of turn off the brain, bring us to the present moment, I think, is to say, okay, all right. Anyway, my brain's not working right now. Martial arts, anyway, there's a lot of things that it induce the relaxation response. So I'm trying to think where my brain just sort of, I'm stressed out, so my brain didn't quite work there. Okay. So when you activate the relaxation response, exactly the opposite of the stress response happens in the body. And Herbert Benson went around the world and studied meditators, Christian monastics, elderly people who had lived long lives, right, so in their 90s to 100s, and looked at why were they so healthy. And what he discovered is that essentially when you find an activity that helps you manage stress, that it turns off that stress response and brings the body back into this sort of homeostasis, and it allows you to relax. And over the long run, that actually results in longevity and a healthier, happier person. So during the relaxation response, exactly the opposite of the stress response happens. Heart rate decreases, blood pressure decreases, respiratory rate decreases, oxygen consumption decreases, muscle tension decreases, slow brain waves, which are sort of the nice, even ones that are responsible for thinking, increase. On a psychological level, we feel less distress. We feel less anxiety. So yeah, that anxiety piece is a big one. Anxiety is sort of our American disease. But when you have an elevated heart rate, right, that elevated heart rate, sort of that pumping, that leads to anxiety. And now you know why you have that, is because you're stressed out. But the relaxation response deals with that by lowering the heart rate. It reduces anxiety. It reduces perception of stress. And again, when you're in the stress response, you are reactive. You react to things. You're not responsive where you're thoughtful, because the part of your brain that helps you be thoughtful, fine. So we tend to be reactive, and we tend to respond to little things as more stressful than they really are. So when the relaxation response kicks in, we perceive things as being less stressful than they actually are. We improve our health promoting behaviors. Our self-esteem grows. We're more interested in caring for ourselves. We feel more in control, so emotional regulation goes up. And what we learn through this is that by managing our stress, we can use our mind to benefit our body. So a healthy mind leads to a healthy body, and a healthy body actually leads to a healthy mind. They're inextricably intertwined. There's actually, in going back to that original stress research that Herbert Benson did, what he learned is that you can use the body to calm the mind, or you can use the mind to calm the body. It works both ways. The important thing is that you figure out what works for you. So exercise. Some people like to run. I hate running. Running is the worst exercise in the world. Yeah, it stresses me out too. It hurts. Probably because the only time you're meant to run is when something's actually chasing you. Why you would go out and do that? Anyway, sorry. Sorry if you're a runner. But some people find running and find that tremendously enjoyable. And if you've ever had that runner's high, or if you've done other exercise like riding a bike or something else, and you sort of get that runner's high or that sort of exercise high, relaxation response kicking in saying, that's good, we're okay. Your body releases endorphins that make you feel good and says, you're safe, you're okay. That relaxation response increases the exact hormones in our body that antidepressants are intended to address. So when you exercise or turn on the relaxation response, whether it's through exercise or something like meditation, something more passive, using the serotonin levels go up, dopamine levels go up, all those things that our antidepressant industry is trying to get more in your body, you can do that naturally by using that relaxation response. So again, the important thing is that you figure out what works for you. So you can do meditative sitting, so praying, meditating, crocheting, knitting, all these sort of passive things can sort of turn off the mind. You can also, again, use the mind to turn off the body. The trick is figuring out what works for you. We did some interesting research when I was at the University of Idaho before I came to Utah State, and we were working with, my background is in special education, and we were working with a classroom of students with behavior disorders. And we realized that behavior disorders are directly correlated with stress. And so what we did is we taught these kids in this classroom with behavior disorders to knit. Okay? And so when they started to have behavior issues and started to act out, we would say, let's sit down and knit together. And so these kids learned how to knit, and they were actually knitting blankets that we gave to the homeless shelter. But what the kids discovered through this is that they actually felt good. And so originally they're like, knitting, oh, that's stupid, that's for old ladies, right? We actually had guys who recognized the benefits of it in this classroom and would actually recognize being stressed out, and they would ask to go sit down and knit for 5 minutes, because that repetition of that activity would turn off the brain, would reduce that stress, and would actually help them come into more emotional control of what's going on in their classroom. So it's interesting. So now you're here to talk about laughter, though. Okay, so let's talk about laughter. And I'm going to cruise through this. There's a lot more research here. The study of laughter is a legitimate thing. It's called gelotology, G-E-L-O. Not Jello, J-E-L-L-O, tology. Gelotology, J-E-L-L-O, is the study of Mormon culture in Utah. You know that Senator Mike Lee does that, right? Yeah. So on Wednesdays on Capitol Hill, you have coffee with the congressman, but because Mike Lee doesn't drink coffee, he has green Jello with the congressman. He's not helping these stereotypes. So gelotology is the study of laughter. People have studied laughter for about 50 years now, oddly enough, but they're kind of looked at as sort of a fringe group. Anybody who's going to study laughter is a little bit weird. Clearly. But the arguments in favor of laughter are virtually universal in that there's very few side effects. And laughter is a very natural way that our body has developed to handle stress. Now, there's been laughter research on all sorts of animals. So your tax dollars have funded research on laughter in rats, mice, dogs, cats, monkeys, bears, herd animals, so things like zebras, caribou, deer. Most mammal social animals laugh. And so in an animal, laughter is called chuffing. And chuffing is it's a forceful exhalation, just kind of like laughter is in us. Chuffing is a way that animals communicate safety one with another. So I grew up in Alaska. We had good friends who lived in Ukavik, which used to be called Barrow. At the very top of Alaska, there's polar bears, right, that just wander through town in Barrow, Alaska. And when polar bears come across each other in the street, polar bears tend to be pretty solitary. They have big territories. They're not social creatures at all. And when they come across each other in the street, they do one of two things in most cases. They are threatened, do this low growl, or they pop their jaws. A lot of bears pop their jaws to sort of indicate that they're threatened, or they chuff, which is this forceful exhalation of air. Now, when they're angry and upset, they're silent, but people mistake sort of this chuffing because they hear, and they're like, oh, they're gonna fight. And really it's just them it's this laughter that's telling the other bear, I'm okay with you, are you okay with me? And if the other bear chuffs back, they kind of relax and each other in the street. Chuffing is also used in herd animals. So when a herd of animals is out grazing on the savannah, you have animals that are sort of watch animals. If you're a hunter, you know this. There's a few animals that sort of alert the herd to danger. So when there is danger to a herd, there's an animal that makes a high sort of chirping sound, and the whole herd almost on cue becomes alert, right? And is ready for the fight or flight response. But when the danger is past, those watch animals do a chuff. And that chuffing sound relaxes the herd and says, okay, it's fine, you can go back to eating. So just the sound of that chuffing, the whole herd goes back to eating and doing whatever it was. So we also chuff. It's laughter, and it communicates relief, and it communicates belonging. You know this because the people that you have laughed with, you feel a connection to. I'm going to explain why that is. So researchers speculate that laughter was used on an evolutionary level to communicate across language boundaries, and even before language developed, as a way to cooperate, as a way to get along one with another. It was really because we have a completely unconscious psychological response to laughter. You hear laughter, you relax. Okay, so if we go through this, you can kind of like, laughter promotes cardiovascular health. So laughter reduces heart rate. It actually makes your blood more slippery. It releases nitric oxide, not nitrous oxide is what your dentist gives you, nitric oxide, the different thing. It makes the blood vessel wall slippery, so it sort of counteracts that sticky blood thing. Laughter strengthens the immune system. I don't have time to go into a lot of how this works, but these are terrible studies done on cancer patients where they come out of chemotherapy and they take one group to go watch a stressful sort of drama or horror movie and another group to go watch a comedy movie, and then they bring them back and take their blood and say, okay, whose immune systems appear to be healthier? And watching a comedy video tends to result in a more active immune system when you laugh. Laughter releases endorphins. These are the feel-good hormones that make us feel okay about life. Again, serotonin and dopamine are the primary ones. And when you laugh, your body releases these. And females tend to have a greater release of endorphins when they laugh than males. Laughter also releases oxytocin. Oxytocin is a really interesting hormone in our body. It's the trust hormone. So oxytocin is released at a very few points in a person's life. Oxytocin is released when a mother is nursing her child. It creates the mother-child bond. It literally chemically connects mother to child. Oxytocin is released when you have sex. And again, it creates a chemical bond between the people who are engaging in sexual activity. We've also discovered recently that laughter also releases oxytocin. So you've probably felt this. When you have genuinely laughed with somebody, you feel a different connection with them. There are people that you work with or who you associate with who you would never laugh with, right? And as a result, there's this sort of different relationship you have with them. But people that you have genuinely with, you literally have a chemical connection to them because of the oxytocin that is secreted. And again, it's one of those things that on an evolutionary level, when you can laugh with somebody, it indicates safety and belonging, and you're, okay, I can get along with these folks. Okay, so essentially, laughter switches on all of the systems that stress switches off. And I'm going to demonstrate to you that laughter is a completely unconscious psychological response that you have. And I'm going to do that by using Anderson Cooper, because he's a funny guy. Like what? Okay, so let's hope the sound works.
Buffalo, the Dingus Day capital of the world. Also the birthplace of the chicken wing, little known fact. They've been celebrating Dingus Day there since the 1800s, but apparently, it really took off in the 1960s.
It caught on because, for a number of reasons. Dingus, first of all, is a funny word. It's spelled with a Y. People don't know what it means.
Because it's spelled with a Y. What does that mean anyway? My new favorite reference spot. That would be dingusdaybuffalo.com. Dingus can be traced back to a medieval word meaning worthy, proper, or suitable. Here's how you celebrate Dingus Day.
The quirky little rituals include boys sprinkling girls that they fancy with water, and the girls striking back with a tap from a pussy willow branch.
It's really so stupid. Let it out. sounds like a bunch of waterlogged drunk people hitting each other with sticks. And then, of course, there's the drinking and dancing and music and more drinking. There's really ain't no party like a Dingus Day party. Because a Dingus Day party is the most random excuse to drink there is.
Okay, so almost everybody responded with smiling or laughing, and even if you didn't respond, just hearing laughter relaxes your body. It's why they started putting laugh tracks on sitcoms. Early sitcoms did not have laugh tracks, and they discovered through the early psychology of laughter that when you stick laugh tracks on it, it relaxes people and it makes people feel a connection to the characters on the screen. And so when you're sitting there watching the sitcom next time, you're like, why do I watch this stupid show? Now you know why. It's psychologists who are using the science of laughter to get you to tune in every week, because you see these people and you're like, oh yeah, these are my people. I'm connected with these people. All because of the science of laughter. So I'm going to teach you a little bit of laughter yoga here. So laughter yoga was discovered in 1995 by a doctor named Madan Kataria in India. He was writing an article on the effects of laughter. And he found, like I just demonstrated, that laughter is super healthy. Why don't we do it more? So he started a laughter club. And him and a bunch of friends went to a park and they started telling jokes. Now that worked for a while until somebody tells that one joke that pisses somebody off. And he discovered that laughter doesn't necessarily require humor. He's like, humor is culturally mediated. Everybody has a different sense of humor. I like Monty Python. My wife looks at me and says, I don't know why you watch this, right? Right? You all have people in your lives who watch things and you're like, what? This is not funny. So laughter does not require humor, because when we understand the evolutionary origin of laughter, then when we hear laughter, it relaxes us and we tend to respond, reciprocate with laughter if we feel safe. You can kind of fake it till you make it. So what he did is he kind of said, we can do fake laughter, these little exercises that sort of do fake laughter, and that eventually leads to real laughter. And so in a typical laughter yoga session, we do lots of little fake exercises. I'll do something with you, and then at the end, once laughter's kind of warmed up, you lay on the floor and you do a laughter meditation. And you laugh for like 10 to 15 minutes just laying on the floor. It's a remarkable experience. I cannot do that with you here today. So I'm going to run a little bit over, just like a couple minutes. Is that okay? Because we want to laugh a little bit more than you already have. So what we're going to do is I'm going to demonstrate laughter. You do not have to have any special clothing or otherwise to do this. You can actually do it sitting down anywhere that you are. So it starts off with clapping. Clapping is the organizing principle in laughter yoga. So it's very scientific. You go like this. Ho, ho, ha, ha, ha. 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 Okay, after we do that, we're all together, we're going to go like this. Very good, very good. Yay! We're all ready for that? You want to know why you do this? Watch Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on power posing and some of that stuff. You're spreading your body out, makes you more powerful. Anyway, let's try it. Very good, very good. Yay! Perfect. Okay. So we have to get laughter warmed up. Laughter lives in different parts of our body. The hoes live here, the ha's live here, the he's live up in here. We have to warm up these laughter centers, so we're going to use our fingertips, and you're going to touch your thumbs together, and you're going to go ho. And you're going to do thumb to pointer, ho ho. Ho ho ho. Merry Christmas. Ho 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 ho. Ho 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 ho. Okay, now we're going to go all the way through. I'll demonstrate. Then you'll do it. You're going to go ho 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 ho. Ready? Ho 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 ho. Ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. All the way through. Ha 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 ha. All the way through. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Oh, oh, ha, ha, ha. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Oh, oh, ha, ha, ha. Very good, very good. Yay! Perfect. Okay, we're now going to turn ourselves on. That sounds right. Okay. You're going to take a key, you're going to put it in your belly, you're going to turn it and go ho. 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 Now turn yourself on. Take a key, put it in your chest. Ha. 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 Turn yourself on. The key, put it in your neck. He. 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 Ho. 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 I can't believe you just did that. It's amazing what you can get people to do. So laughter yoga is just doing silly things like this. You can go on YouTube and find all sorts of people doing stuff like this. You don't always necessarily need another person to do it. So there's lots of different kinds of laughter. Lion laughter, where we pretend like we're a lion. I want to see more of that. There's social laughter exercises where we'll walk around the room and shake hands and laugh with individuals. But there's really what it is this fake laughter to get real laughter sort of primed. And after you do it for a while, it becomes a lot more natural. We're very good at being stressed out, but we're not very good at relaxing, and we're not very good at just laughing. Now, I have a whole bunch of stuff here, and I can actually send this. You can see it, but I want to demonstrate something. I'm actually running off for a flight here. I've got to go to Grand Rapids. Why I got to go to Grand Rapids, I don't know. Is there anything in Grand Rapids? Anyway, I have a hard time on planes. I'm a big guy. I don't like confined little spaces. I like people, but not that much. And I like to laugh before I get on planes. Now, I can go sit by the gate and I can just laugh. And they're not letting me on the plane. Nope. Not getting on. Thankfully, we all have these, and I can go like this before I get on the plane. All of a sudden, you're the guy I want to sit next to that guy. It's fun. These are remarkable sanity imparting devices that you can use. You just gotta hope nobody calls you. Yeah. But there's lots of ways to laugh, and when we understand the importance of laughter, it's something that we need to cultivate over time. We're not good at it. We're good at being stressed out. We're not good at relaxing and laughing. Friends Jake and Finn here. I don't know how many of you watch Adventure Time. I love Adventure Time. And there's an episode where Finn and Jake are walking along, and Jake imparts this wonderful nugget of knowledge, right? Dude, sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something. It's that way with relaxation and laughter in our culture. We're very good at being stressed out. Our role models are stressed out. The people that we look up to and admire are stressed out, important people. And we're not good at laughing at people, and we're not good at relaxing just in general, taking a break during our day, take care of our own mental health. And we may feel like we suck at it. Even I'm a terrible laugher. I don't laugh. You got to start somewhere. We all have to start somewhere. Now, in terms of a final take home here, When I went to India a few years ago, we met with this potter, Anurag Das, and he makes pots in sort of the old way, and he fires them in these old kilns. And one of the things that he said is that every pot of clay needs to pass through fire to get strong, and man's just another pot of clay. My message is not to completely avoid stress. Stress is important, right? Stress is what gets you out of bed in the morning. Stress is what helps us get things done. But there's such a thing as too much stress. And I would argue that most of us deal in our day-to-day lives, we're in a state of distress. We're kind of gone over the top and we're down in this chronic pervasive stress area that eventually, what happens when a pot gets too hot? Pot cracks, right? When it's in a kiln for too long, a pot cracks. We're exactly the same way. If we're in this state of stress too long, it has long-term mental and physical health implications that in the long run are not very healthy for us. We do need just enough, and if we can handle that stress, if we can maintain that balance, if we can carve out a bit of time every day to relax, it's going to make us stronger, better people. And with that said, thank you.